Good morning. Oh boy, what's my hair doing? Can I pat it down? Let me tie it back. It's looking a little crazy. Okay, this morning we are drinking Bianco Forte. It is meant to be drank with milk, so I did add a little bit of milk to this. It's pretty bitter considering I added milk. Yeah, it's actually pretty bitter. Let me look it up on espresso. What does it say? Okay, Bianco Forte, dark roasted and balanced. Flavorful coffee, blend with milk, Kenyan and Colombian Arabicas. Let's see, rich roasted and cereal notes, intense, full-bodied. The dash of milk gives a sweet softening to the coffee's characteristic bitter note. Oh yeah, it is bitter. It is bitter. That definitely comes through. So bitterness is 4 out of 5. Roast level is 5 out of 5. And body is 1 out of 5. That's bitter. That's bitter. Wow, that'll wake you up. Bianco Forte. Okay, not one of my favorites. Not one of my favorites. But anyway, let's get on with day, what are we on? Day, I don't know. I'm gonna mess it up, but let's go ahead and open up these advent calendars. Let's get into today's video. I'm so excited for today's video. Okay, I'll be right back. Day 23. Day 23, okay. Right here. Oh, and it looks like, oops. Whoa, excuse me. Looks like we have a votive. The Pomegranate Noir. This is a great holiday winter fragrance. You guys know how much I love the English Pear and Freesia for the holidays from Jo Malone, but this one has like a little bit more like green to it. Ooh, that smells good. I may have to light this one up today. Okay. 23, right? Yeah, 23. Here we are. The Tam Doe EDP. So this has a slightly spicy scent of sandalwood, the forests and holy temples of Vietnam, an olfactory memory rekindled by the cooling notes of cypress and myrtle. Ooh, the cypress is really present. I think it's very interesting. Whenever I read the notes of diptyque fragrances, I definitely smell them, but it's not what I would like assume that they would smell. Like when I read the notes for this, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I always think of Tam Doe as being fairly light. Like when I read sandalwood and cypress and myrtle, I just think it's going to be very deep, almost cloying, but it's not at all. It's really, really fresh. Today is the day we're going to be talking about my all-time absolute favorite luxury makeup. I do this every year. I am so excited. Let's just jump right in because this is going to be a really long video. But we're going to start with primer. My all-time favorite primer is the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. I love this guy. It is just very, very nourishing. It's very nourishing and it makes for an incredible, incredible primer. It goes on like a cream. It actually has a very fluffy kind of texture. I don't know if you can tell, but it has like a very fluffy kind of texture, but also very rich at the same time. And I have dry skin and I can't really speak to whether or not this would work if you have oily skin. Probably not. You're probably going to want like a mattifying primer, something like that. But if you have normal to dry skin, very dry skin like myself, this is incredible. So I put this on, of course, after all of my skincare. And even if I don't feel like I need a little bit of moisture, I put this on and I'm like, it's like a big drink of water for my skin. I love, love, love the citrus scent that it has. I know some of you don't really like that. I think I saw some comments that were like, it smells like cleaner. I really like that. I love citrus scents. I'm actually burning a lime, basil, and mandarin candle back there. I love it. So I love a citrus scent. It wakes me up. It's really invigorating. I really enjoy it. And it is very, very present in this primer. So if you don't like citrus scents, I would stay away from this. But if you enjoy them, or if you don't mind, this could be the primer for you. This primer has been a long-time favorite of mine, and this did appear in last year's all-time favorites video. So that has not changed. But let's move on to foundation because this has changed a little bit. The foundation that I have on is one that I've talked about, is one that I mentioned in last year's video, and that is the Surratt Dewdrop Foundation. I have a mixture of 3 and 4
on my skin. 3 is a little bit lighter than 4, and so I'll use a little bit more of 4 on like the upper portion of my face basically, and then 3, a little bit more of 3 like closer down to my neck where I'm paler. The coverage of this foundation is a light medium. It has a very liquidy, almost like a serum kind of consistency, so it's not terribly creamy, and it goes on like a dream. So once this foundation sets down, it just gets better. I feel like sometimes you apply foundation, you're like, oh, this looks great, you know, like, oh, I like the finish or whatever. And then it sets down and it kind of changes. Maybe it looks a little bit more matte. Maybe it starts to sink into fine lines, like it starts to do weird things. This foundation looks better as it sets down. It's almost like it has to just set up shop on your face, and what it does is starts to blur everything. It starts to blur out fine lines. It starts to blur out larger pores. And then all of a sudden you get this really beautiful sheen to your skin. Now I do have highlighter on, but just here. I didn't put it, you know, all over my face or whatever. I just put it on the tops of my cheekbones. Oh, and I brushed a little bit down the bridge of my nose, but that's it. This beautiful sheen is the foundation. It is gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's really, really subtle. It catches the light just ever so slightly. And I can say that I have an oily skin friend, Risa, over at Risa Does Makeup. She tried this foundation out because I raved about it and she really enjoyed it. So she has very oily skin. I have very dry skin and it works for both of us. So there's something quite magical about this foundation. I love the coverage. I love the finish. I love the shades. The 3 and 4 work for me really, really well. It's just gorgeous. I love the way my skin looks when I put this on. And just a tip, because this has one of those like interesting dispenser systems. So it's got this very narrow pointed tip. So what you want to do is with the cap on, you want to make sure you shake it first, shake it well, and then you want to make sure you turn it upside down, just like this. And depending, of course, on like how much you've used it and how much foundation is left in the bottle, you want to then just hold it down. And then once you feel like most of the product has reached the bottom, there is this depressor button here, and you're basically going to get 1 drop. So what I like to use is probably like 4 or 5 drops for my face. You can see a drop is a very small amount. And I think maybe they updated this tip a little bit, maybe not. I was just thinking maybe it looks a little bit smaller, but I do feel like when I first had this foundation, I'm on my 3rd bottle of this. When I first got the foundation, I felt like a drop or 2 was enough. So I think more used to come out and now less comes out. So it's a little bit more controlled. And if you don't want to use as much, it's a lot easier that way. But that's about how much I get out of a little drop. So anyway, just a note about that dispenser, because I know some of you had trouble with it. And I said, don't forget to just do this. Like you don't want to just open it up and just start squeezing the button thinking, you know, foundation's going to come out. You really want to let gravity help you. So we'll say that's my favorite liquid foundation. I do have a favorite stick foundation, and you guys knew I wouldn't be able to stop myself, but I had to talk about the Dior stick foundation. I think I mentioned this in yesterday's video, my best of 2024. I mentioned this in last week's video, was it last week or earlier this week, my top 10 Dior beauty, but this is the Dior foundation stick. This came out this past year and it has just blown me away. I use the shade 2N and it is magnificent. It's absolutely magnificent. I love that it's in stick form, so it's very, very easy to travel with. I don't have to worry about it leaking or making a mess. And it goes on, and it definitely has more coverage than the Surratt. So it has, I would say, more like a medium coverage. It blends out so easily and so quickly. So this is the foundation I reach for if I'm in a rush. It's like whoop, whoop, whoop. I just like draw some on my face. I use a brush. It just blends out like a dream and like done. Within a minute, my foundation is done and it stays put all day. It does claim to have a 24-hour wear. I have never worn this or any other foundation for 24 hours, so I can't attest to that, but it does last all day for me. 8-10-hour wear. It doesn't budge. It doesn't move. It looks great on my skin. It looks the same at the end of the day as it does at the beginning of the day. So I really love this foundation stick from Dior. It is amazing. So last year I also mentioned the Dr. Jart Premium BB Tinted Moisturizer in Fair Light. I still love that foundation. I really do. But I thought I'm going to be mentioning these two and I didn't want to convolute this list too much. So I left that one off. I actually like the Dior a little bit more. Like if I had to choose between the two, I like this and the Surratt for liquid. So anyway, for concealer, I also changed it up. So this, I believe, was on my list in 2022. This is the Dior Forever Skin Correct Concealer. I just love this concealer. I just keep going back to this concealer. And last year I mentioned the Surratt Dewdrop Concealer. I like them both, but for some reason, I just reach for the Dior much, much more. I think, I don't know, maybe it's that I feel a little bit more comfortable using this when I don't want to put any foundation on. So I just want to kind of perfect the skin around my eyes and then maybe spot conceal. This is, maybe it's just a matter of it being easier. It's just a straight up doe foot applicator. Super easy. The Surratt Dewdrop Concealer has like a sponge tip. Not that that's difficult. You just have to turn the bottom and some come out. But I don't know. I've just been reaching for this one a lot more this past year. And the fact that I mentioned this in 2022, I'm like, I think this is my all-time favorite concealer. Like, I cheated on you last year. I apologize. But here I am. I'm crawling on my hands and knees back to you for 2024. You are my favorite concealer, the Dior Forever Skin Correct Concealer. I think I gave myself like a little cut right there. What is going on? Oh my gosh. Let me just clean that off. One moment, please. Okay, sorry about that. Back to the concealer. So this concealer, great coverage, great formula, super creamy, doesn't crease, doesn't budge, like all the things. I absolutely love it. They have a ton of shades. I wear shade 2N, did I mention that already? 1.5 on occasion, but I really like 2N. It just matches my skin. It's great. And this bottle for concealer is really large. How much is in here? It is, oh my gosh, 0.37 fluid ounces. That's a lot for concealer, right? Or is this bottle deceiving? Anyway, I have been using this for years, ever since it came out. I feel like this is the product that had me fall in love with concealers. I feel like before that I was a little bit afraid to use them. They always seemed to like age my under eyes. I would set them with powder. It was like I would do all these things. Some were okay. Some, you know, I definitely came across some that were totally fine, but I definitely gravitated towards ones that had really light coverage because they just seemed to not do anything funky. But with the light coverage, I also don't think I got much concealment, but this is just so effective and so beautiful on the skin. I love it. I love this Dior. So this is my all-time favorite concealer. Let's just get this over. Let's talk about loose powder. So this is a really, really sore point for me. I talked about the Givenchy last year. This has been replaced with a formula you guys heard me talk about, and probably everyone else here on YouTube talk about how the new formula is not that good. It's just not that good. It does not look good on the skin. It looks like strangely matte, yet micro glittery all at the same time. It's very odd. But the powder that I do really, really love that I have mentioned in previous years is the Kogan Do Natural Lighting Powder. That powder, I would say now that this one is gone, that one's coming back onto my list. Now I don't have any on me and I am gonna be getting some because I was using this. I was using some other powders that were fine and I wanted to kind of get through them. I don't go through powder very often. I don't wear powder every single time I put makeup on, but I was kind of going through my drawers. I was grieving the loss of this and I thought, let me just make sure the Kogan Do Natural Lighting Powder is still around, and it is. It's not carried at Sephora anymore, unfortunately, but it is still around and that powder is beautiful. It is really, really beautiful. It is very translucent, but it leaves your skin with this very soft, pearly sheen, and it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I'm gonna get some. I will be putting it on in the new year, so definitely stay tuned for that. But yeah, that, if you guys have been following me for a long time, you know that that has been a long time love of mine. And the previous version of the Prism Leap came very, very close to that Kogan Do Natural Lighting Powder. So anyway, I'm going back to that one. That one is fantastic. That one's fantastic. And yes, I'll be picking that up. Pressed powders. I believe this one has been on my list consistently. Oh, maybe I didn't talk about pressed powders last year. Interesting. Okay. This one, I know I've talked about in at least my yearly favorites, and I've definitely talked about in my monthly favorites, but it is the Sicily Fito Poudre Compact in the shade number 2 Natural. This is the powder that I have kind of lightly dusted all over my face today. It does a great job kind of setting my makeup. It does a great job, you know, mattifying anything that's, you know, too shiny. but I don't feel like it makes my skin look dry. And it has that slight kind of soft satin sheen that I really, really love to powder. We're not talking about anything shiny or anything like that, but just like a soft, like if you were to think of, I don't know, like a silk pillowcase or like satin pajamas, like that level of sheen. It just has that pearly kind of radiance to it. And I love it, much for the same reasons that I love the Kogendo Natural Lighting Powder. This has very, very similar qualities to that. So this has been a longtime favorite of mine. In fact, I feel like I need to get a new one. I feel like I've had this for like a scary long time, maybe like 4 or 5 years. And because I just did that declutter, I really was like thinking about all of my makeup and thinking about how old some of my makeup is. So it may be time to replace this. Anyway, it's still going strong, but you know, just for sanitary sake. Let's move on to contour. So last year I talked about the Surratt Artistic Blush in Grisal. I still love that. That is really, really great. But I have to say, and I think this is a previous all-time favorite, I'm going back to a lot of, I feel like I'm going back to basics here, but I'm going back to a lot of all-time favorites. And it's the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow, the Sculpt powder in here. This is such a great contour. It's what I have on my cheeks today. And I mean, it's just, yeah, it's just perfect for my skin tone. It's perfectly cool toned without looking too gray, but there's really no warmth to it at all. There's no orangey, peachy red to this at all. So it is definitely very cool toned, but I like that it's not too cool, where it looks a little bit too scary in real life. It is gorgeous. The powder is great. It's just a straight up pressed powder. Very, very easy to use. So going back to this one, going back to basics. Okay. My favorite contour stick is the Dior. And again, I talked about this in my top 10 Dior. I talked about this in my best of 2024 yesterday, and for much of the same reason as the foundation stick, because I think it's pretty much the same formula. I love this contour stick, and I do use shade 1 Light, and it has a great, great tone, much like the Film Store Bronze and Glow. It is just cool, but not too cool. It's just devoid of any warmth, and yeah, it goes on really well. It blends out really, really smoothly, and for contour, that's very important. So that's my favorite cream contour. Did I have a cream contour last year? Let's see. Oh, I talked about the Makeup by Mario Soft Sculpt Transforming Skin Enhancer in Light. Now that, I do use that as a cream contour on occasion, but that is meant to just sort of warm up your entire complexion because it is very, very light. I do really, really like that product, but this I like more. All right, let's move on to bronzer. So last year I had the Tom Ford Glow Bronzer in Terra. I would still say that that's my all-time favorite bronzer. However, I think it's being discontinued. It doesn't seem to be restocking anywhere, and any stock I've seen seems to be marked down. So if you love it as much as I do, get it now. It is marked down. And I don't know what they're doing with the Tom Ford Beauty line. It really seems like they're in this state of transition. So anyway, I didn't want to mention that because it does seem like it's going to be discontinued. And I'm going to say it's the Chantecaille Goa. This is one that I have pulled out quite often and mention in my favorites, whether they're monthly or yearly or whatever. But I love this baked gel powder formula. I love the tone of Goa. I don't know if you guys can tell, but there's a really, really rich red undertone to this. And I love a red undertoned bronzer because I feel like it really mimics when my skin does see a little bit, when it does see sunlight, not often, no, but when it does see sunlight and my skin kind of just like reacts to the sun and it tans and there's that little bit of reddishness underneath. That's what I feel like red tone bronzers do. And this one I feel like does it the best. So Goa is the deeper bronzer that they have. Serena is the lighter one, but the lighter one is warmer. It's more orangey. There's a little bit more like yellow in there. And I like when they're more red toned like this. So I have this just very lightly dusted, just, you know, where my face would see the sun. So my forehead, down the bridge of my nose, like on the tops of my cheekbones. And it's a really beautiful, beautiful formula and really beautiful tone. So the Chantecaille Goa. And I remember when they first came out with this, it was limited edition, but it seems like it's now around to stay. I really hope so. I really hope so because, yeah, it's great. It's great. They got the color down perfectly. Okay, cream blush. All-time favorite. Westman Atelier, the blush stick. What's the full name? The Baby Cheeks blush stick. Now, I just have Petal, but I love all the shades. And last year I talked about the Kira Weiss cream blush, which I really, really love. I don't know, it's not really an issue, but the one thing I want to point out with the Kira Weiss line is that they are an organic beauty brand, so they don't have a lot of preservatives in their makeup. And so all the cream blushes that I had from her went bad. And then I had these cheek palettes from her and they went bad. And I thought, oh, that's so annoying. It's so, so annoying. And my Westman Atelier Baby Cheeks blush sticks have stayed good for as long as I've had them. This happens to be a newer one, but I've purchased, you know, a ton of their Baby Cheeks blush sticks in the original packaging. This actually came in like holiday packaging, not even from this year, maybe last year. Anyway, these stay good longer. That's my point. These stay good longer, and I do like the shade range of the Westman Atelier Baby Cheeks blush sticks more than the Kira Weiss. And then I thought maybe I would mention the Clé de Peau cream blush because I love those, but those also, much like the Tom Ford Terra Bronzer, it looks like they're not restocking. I know Clé de Peau has been slowly kind of like redoing their line. I don't know. I don't know what's happening with that cream blush. But that cream blush, if I felt like that was here to stay, it's well stocked, we know it's going to be around, I would definitely have talked about that in this video, but I don't know what's happening with that cream blush. So here we are with Westman Atelier. I'm wearing Petal on my cheeks, and I really like that it's in stick form. It's just really, really easy to use. I can just swipe it on, tap it in with my fingers, or I can run a brush over it and then apply it straight from my brush onto my cheeks. Or I can, you know, dab it onto my cheeks and then use a brush, which is what I usually do. It's just really easy to use. I do like stick form. I do think that's probably the most convenient form that makeup could come in. And the finish of these blushes are very straightforward. There aren't a lot of shimmers. There is one shade, I think it's Minette. It's a really, really light peach, and that one has like some gold flecks to it. That's the only one. The rest of them that I've experienced all have just a very, very kind of like demi-matte finish, but because it's a cream product, they just don't look dry. Like they don't completely like dry down to a powder finish. They're just really like glowy on the cheeks. And yeah, I love it. I love the shades. I love the formula. I love its form factor. Like everything is amazing to me. So that is my all-time favorite cream blush. So my favorite powder blush, I was going back and forth between two, just back and forth and back and forth. And as I sat down to film, I just had to call it. I was like, okay, Michelle, close your eyes, open them, and you're going to a desert island. You can only pick one. What would you grab? And I grabbed this one. I grabbed this one. This is the Lancôme 217. And this is Miel Glacé. And I talk about how this is a great dupe for the Chanel Golden Sun, which has been long discontinued. Someone just mentioned that they thought this was a good dupe for Jersey as well. I don't have Jersey. I did have Jersey, but I decluttered it. And I think this one has more of a sheen to it, like Golden Sun, but maybe the tone of this is closer to Jersey. Or no, sorry, it's all coming back to me. Jersey actually warmed up on my skin a little bit more than this or the Golden Sun. So Jersey, I think, looks like this in the pan, but when I apply it, it's almost like a peach. So it could be my skin. You know, my skin tends to turn things very, very warm. And so I never associated this with Jersey. Anyway, I associate this with Golden Sun. I do love this blush. It is really, really beautiful on the skin, and there is a really gorgeous satin sheen to it. And the formula is just a soft pressed powder. It goes on beautifully. It just sort of glides on. It blends out beautifully. It's like this beautiful dusting of blush on your cheeks. And I really, really like the subtle satin sheen that it has. And I love this tone. It's very, very neutral. I think the base is very neutral, but the sheen of this is cool toned. So it definitely pulls a little bit cooler. So what I mean by that is like the metallic sheen in there that you see, it's not gold in any way. It definitely is a little bit pearly. It's a little bit pink. It's a little bit kind of silver. So it gives it that kind of cool toned appearance. You can even see it here in the pan. But when you get it on your cheeks, like a little bit of that kind of peachier undertone comes through. So it just goes well with a lot of things, is my point. It goes well with like warm or cool tone looks, either with your eyes or your lips. So it's very, very universal and it's beautiful. Highlights. I do have an all-time favorite cream highlight, and that is the Westman Atelier Lit Up Highlight Stick in Nectar. That's probably no surprise to you guys. I love, love, love this formula, and I love Nectar. Look at that shade. Isn't it just so darn pretty? That light peach. And then it gives your skin that beautiful, subtle glow that cream highlights give. Really, really satiny. And then you get a little bit of peach, a little bit of champagne. It is so, so complimentary on the skin. And I love how glossy it looks. So it's not just like shiny. It's not just like super metallic. It's glossy, and the metallic sheen is, again, it's very satin. So it has that kind of like dulled kind of finish to it. It applies beautifully. You can just like tap it onto your cheeks, but it makes for a subtle highlight. So if that's what you're in the mood for, cream blushes, I think in general are more subtle than powder. And this one, I think, just has a really beautiful like elegance to it. Very, very nice tone. So that's my cream highlighter, all-time favorite. Powder highlight. You guys, we have a new one because this came out this past year. And in fact, this is very new to my collection, but I have fallen in love with it. It is what I am wearing on my cheeks today. So if you want a strong highlight, in contrast to this guy, if you want a really strong highlight, this Hermes highlight is so good. It's so, so good. And when I opened it up, I was like, oof, this reminds me of something. And when I was going through my declutter, it hit me. It reminds me of the very old, discontinued Burberry highlight in rose gold, number 4. This is absolutely gorgeous. Now, let's go ahead and swatch the two, one next to the other, because they're not exact matches for one another. Oof, God. I think the Hermes is a little bit, oh yeah, just a little bit cooler toned. So Hermes, hold on, let me point them out to you. Hermes is over here, and you see it has like a little bit more of a pink tone, and then this is the Burberry, which has a little bit more of like a peachy tone. But the shine and the formulas are so similar, so similar. Oh my gosh, just gorgeous. So smooth, so metallic, goes on like you just need like the littlest bit. I just tap my brush, my very, very fluffy light brush into the pan just ever so slightly, and I get enough for both cheeks. Absolutely stunning. It is that baked gel powder, which we love here. So this is the Poudre 24 Faubourg, which is their address over in Paris. And this shade is 02 or Rose. So I don't know if they're going to be coming out with more. I don't know if this is permanent. I didn't see whether or not this was limited edition. I really hope not. I really hope not. They did have a baked gel powder highlight with the H on it. Maybe that was 01. Anyway, that one was a little bit too gold for me. This one I think is more complimentary. If you have a similar skin tone to me, this is a little bit more complimentary because of that rosiness in there. But oof, it's beautiful. I do want to mention, it does have a fragrance. It has the same fragrance as their lipsticks, and it is one of their fragrances, and I don't know what it is. I'm not familiar with Hermes fragrances, but it does have a fragrance. It's almost like a pastel-y, floral candy kind of fragrance. It's subtle. It's more subtle in this powder than it is in the lipsticks, but it's present. And if you don't like fragrance, just stay away. But it is a gorgeous highlight, and it's my all-time favorite powder highlight. All right, let's talk about face palettes. I do have a favorite powder face palette and a favorite cream face palette. I am a sucker for face palettes. It's probably my favorite like category in terms of makeup. I just think they're so much fun. And I believe this one is not limited edition. It is still in stock at many retailers. I hope they don't discontinue this product. I'll be very, very upset. But this is the Chanel Le Beige Healthy Glow Sun-Kissed Powder in Light Coral. And I think they have at least one other shade. I think they have a medium and maybe a deep. But this light coral is gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And I think for a face palette, this is great because all of these shades in here obviously work for a light skin tone, and they're just very middle of the road, very almost kind of like basic, and products that you would not mind just using every day, just throwing on. So like if you're on vacation or whatever and you've brought this, I wouldn't mind using this every day. Now I stopped bringing this, I stopped traveling with this powder, even though I did for a couple of trips, because there's a crack in it and I don't want that to get worse. So this stays at home now. But this palette reminds me of one of my all-time favorite face palettes, and that's the Tom Ford, the Afternooner. I think it was the Tom Ford face palette. Maybe it was the second one that they came out with. I'm actually going to do a search for it because I'm sure pictures of it will pop up. Do you guys remember this face palette? Now this face palette is probably, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years old. But I got that palette and it was one of those big Tom Ford palettes with the white, and it was so special then. Anyway, the product inside was fantastic. The powders were really, really soft, and it was just like this Chanel one. The shades are so similar to this that they just worked. So if I brought that and those were the only highlight, bronze, and blush that I brought, I was okay with it. So I really, really love this palette, and I hope they don't discontinue it. I think I've said this before on my channel, but I really love face palettes because they kind of remind me of Neapolitan ice cream. Do you guys ever think of that when you pull out your face palettes? Here are the 3 shades in this face palette. So good, right? Okay, now for cream face palette. These Makeup Forever cream palettes are awesome. They're so awesome, and better than powder face palettes, they have like foundation / concealer products in here. Not this one, actually. Hold on, let me hold this up. This is just blush and highlight, and this is the most recent version of these HD like skin palettes from Makeup Forever. This is the first one that they came out with. So these were just all base products. So foundation shades, bronzers, contour, highlights. And I was like, I love this. And it was really the formula. Like I personally loved playing around with like mixing these shades up to kind of get like the perfect concealer and then the perfect foundation, you know, a little bit darker up here, a little bit lighter down here. It was really, really fun. But the formula is what really, really won me over because they just go on like a dream, almost like these Dior contour sticks. Like it's this cream product, but it just like blends out beautifully. It just melts right into your skin, but they're not too greasy. They're not too oily. And then they don't like crease. They don't budge. They just last a long time. Just a fantastic, fantastic formula. And I really love this concept. My favorite one is the second version of this. This is the HE Skin Face Essentials palette. And then they had different shade ranges. So this one had bronzer, contour, concealer, foundation, and then some highlight and blushes. So for me, this was like kind of like a complete face set in this one palette. So, so good. The formula is really, really incredible. And if you're like a cream product lover, isn't this great? This is like all you need for your whole face, aside from, you know, like eyeshadow and lips. These really, really impressed me for the past couple of years because I don't think they came out or were introduced this past year. I think it was last year. But anyway, really, really love those. Absolute favorite cream face palette. All right, let's move on to eyebrows. Now, this was interesting because the Tom Ford Fiber Brow Gel had been my all-time favorite, long-time favorite of mine, and that is another product. I'm not sure what's going on with it. I don't know if it's being discontinued. I don't know if they're reformulating, whatever. I am moving on. I'm moving on because I can't figure it out. Anyway, so I've tried a lot of brow products, and a lot of them are very nice. You know, like I love the Persona, their brow tint. That was in my all-time favorites last year. And then the $1 Billion Brows I discovered this past year. I don't think it's new. It's new to me. That was great. But this Dior Onset Brow Gel, this one is really, really, really great. This one is so low maintenance. I feel like I can just brush it in and go. I don't have to like worry that there's like too much product on the spoolie. I don't have to worry about like any clumps or anything. And there's fibers in here, which I really love because I need a lot of kind of like filling in with my brows. And I've been using the shade dark brown. I do have a backup tube of Raven, which is black, but the dark brown is great for me. I do think the black will probably be fine for my my brows as well. But it's just a great formula, and I really like the spoolie. I talked about this in my top 10 Dior beauty video, but the spoolie is a great, great size. It's not too big, it's not too small. I'm not a fan of either. Actually, too big for obvious reasons, and too small, I feel like, I don't know, it's just messy. It just gets messy for me. So I love this. I love everything about it. The formula, the color, the spoolie, the tube. The tube is really pretty. That is my all-time favorite brow product. Okay. Eyeshadows. Eyeshadows. You guys know that this was tough. This was tough. The Natasha Denona 28 pan green brown palette, that has been one of my all-time favorites, but that, much like many of the products I've talked about in today's video, I just don't know the future of it. It seems like it's not at any retailers except for the Natasha Denona site, but I think they only have the blue purple left, which is the other 28 pan. Anyway, I'm like, I just have to let that go. I have to let it go. This palette is my favorite. It's my all-time favorite palette, and this is the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. Before this, I would say maybe it was the Glam palette, if I had to choose one that wasn't the 28 pan. But that palette it's a little bit more glam. The shades in there are a little bit deeper. They're a little bit more dramatic. And for me, this is one that I'm gonna reach for a lot more. And it's slightly cool toned, which I am loving. So all of these metallic shades make for great one and done shades. I basically have this all over my lid, which is called Fair. And then I have Mesh, which is the matte shade right underneath. I have that kind of deepening up my outer corners, and then I pull it into my crease area. And then I used Travertine up here, which is a metallic shade, and I have that pretty much like all over my lid. And then I tapped Muse, which is the center shade. I tapped that on the center of my lids for a little bit of glittery goodness. And then I threw Whisper in the inner corners just to kind of brighten it up a little bit. And then I have Silhouette, this guy, along my lash line. I do use an eyeliner as well, which we'll get to, but I brought this along my lash line just to kind of deepen it up a little bit. It's a beautiful palette. Natasha Denona formulas. I don't have a problem with them anymore. They've become very, very consistent. Her mattes are beautiful. Her metallics are really, really beautiful. I very, very rarely get fallout from them. Just wonderful. And I love that this nude palette is pretty cool toned. It's just perfect. It's perfect for me. And I've been reaching for this a lot, just for like one shade. If I'm like, oh, I just need like a cool matte, let me pull out this palette. So this is my all-time favorite eyeshadow palette. I did also want to pick an all-time favorite single shadow, and you guys, I couldn't decide. Much like my blushes. So did I even tell you what was the other blush that almost made it onto this list? So it was either this Lancome or it was going to be the Dior Charnel. And I think I just like this shade just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Okay. So for single shadows, can you guys guess which two are the two I'm trying to choose from? They're very similar. They're even very similar brands. But I've got the Chanel Brun Talpa and the Beige Mitza from Dior. Now let's do side-by-side swatches. I'm gonna decide right in front of you. I will say the formulas are very, very similar. I feel like they both are very, very long lasting. They both wear really, really well. I don't find that they fade at all. They don't crease. There's no fallout, nothing like that. They're both very creamy. They feel different in the pan. Like the Dior feels a little bit firmer than the Chanel, but not by much. It's not like a huge difference. So we've got Dior on this side and Chanel over here. Chanel has a softer touch. The Dior is shinier. You can see that metallic sheen. And the Dior has a little bit of a peach undertone, while the Brun Talpa stays pretty true. There isn't a lot of dimension in the Bruntalpa, where I feel like in the Dior there's like the metallic sheen is one shade, and then you've got like a taupe, and then underneath that you have a peach. It's a little bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say interesting. There's just more dimension to the Dior. The Chanel is a little bit more straightforward. I don't know, which do I prefer? I think I'm going to pick the Chanel, and I'll tell you why. It's because it's less va-va-voom. It's something that I think I would feel comfortable wearing every single day. While I feel like the beige Mitza, because it's so metallic, isn't quite appropriate for, like, I don't know, going grocery shopping or whatever, but I would feel comfortable with the Chanel Bruntalpa. And I think this is sheeny enough to wear as an evening shade. Like, there's enough kind of satin sheen going on. And I like that it's straightforward. I like that there isn't any peach undertone. That it's just like a straight up taupe. Ooh, God, that's tough though. I mean, either one, right? Either one I would take. But I'm gonna say the Chanel Bruntalpa is my all-time favorite single shadow. That was stressful. That was really stressful. Okay, let's talk about mascara. So, oh, my list went away. I want to see what I picked for last year. Oh, okay, well, this would have definitely been maybe the same pick from last year, but the Wayne Goss waterproof mascara, that's what I picked last year. I love that mascara, but Wayne Goss is completely redoing his line. So that is no longer around, so sad. But this year I picked my Surratt Noir Lash Tint, and mainly because it keeps the curl to my lashes better than any other mascara. In terms of like lengthening and thickening and all of that, it's as good as any other mascara, but it really is how it keeps the curl to my mascara. Some mascaras will start out strong and I'm like, ooh, this is doing a good job. And then by the end of the day, they're a little bit straight. To be expected. I think most mascaras do that. But this one, all day my lashes stay curled, and I have really, really straight downward facing lashes. So this is defying gravity. It is really, really magical. So that's the Surratt Noir Lash Tint. They only have one shade, which is black, and it's got this really interesting applicator where it's like a screw. And so the product gets caught in the threading. There's no like spoolie or anything. And so your lashes are supposed to also get caught in the threading of the screw. And it's really cool. It works for me. I don't think it's messy. I don't find it to be messy or anything. Really easy to use. And I just love the curl. The Wayne Goss waterproof mascara also held my curl. That was the only other mascara that would hold it all day. And eyeliners. I picked the Victoria Beckham satin kajal liners. Hold on, I'm gonna grab them all because look at these shades. So many and so beautiful. So the shade that I do use the most, that I am using today, is not that one. Where is it? Oh, it's this one, is Bronze. And I basically have tight lined with it. But all of these shades are really, really beautiful, all of them. And I think what I love about this formula is that these are a kajal liner, which I tend to prefer over gel liners. I don't mind gel liners. I don't really have anything against them, but there's something very slippy slidey about a gel liner. And I think I mentioned this when I was talking about lip liners. What video? Oh, in my Top 10 Dior video, I'm talking about the the Grige Attitude lip liner from Dior. And I like that one because it's not too much like a gel, where I feel like I almost like lose control of like gel eyeliners and lip liners, where they're too slick, they're too slippy. I like things with a little bit more tack, and these kajal liners have them, and these stay put. So I have the Bronze in my upper waterline, my lower waterline, and nothing. I mean, granted, I did just put it on before I started filming, but like no smudgies. It's perfect. And I also ran it like in my lash line. So it's on my eyelid as well. Anyway, they're just really, really great. This shade range is incredible. So love these eyeliners. Lip liner. Now, I was thinking about the Dior. However, they only have that one shade that I like, and I thought I can do better than that. And so I have really been loving the Makeup Forever Artist Pencils. I've been wearing this shade, Anywhere Caffeine, a lot, but there are so many beautiful shades. Sorry, I pulled them out and I put them over here. So we've got 5 really beautiful shades. Aren't these gorgeous? So this is Anywhere Caffeine, which I've been pulling the most, but I've also been using Endless Cacao quite a bit as a contour. And then these shades are really great. And the formula is really great. I think I talked about this in a previous video as well. The formula is just great. They're just very, very straightforward. They're not too gel, too slippy or anything like that. They stay put. They like help control my lip product, whatever it may be. The shades are beautiful. They're a pencil that you need to sharpen, which I prefer to the twist up. The twist up ones I find always dry out very, very quickly. So I'm a big fan of these. I just love like everything about them. Okay, lipstick. This was really hard too, and I did the same thing I did with the blushes. I was like, okay, Michelle, you're gonna open up this lipstick drawer and you're just gonna pick one. You're just gonna pick one. What's your desert island lipstick? What's the one you would take with you for the rest of your life? And that is the Chanel Rouge Coco Flash in Boy. It is what I have on today with my Makeup Forever Anywhere Caffeine lip liner. This formula is fantastic. The shade is fantastic. I just really like this flash formula. There's something so juicy about them. The level of pigmentation is right. The finish is really beautiful. I think I read, or maybe a sales associate at Chanel kind of described it as like a lip gloss in a stick, but it's more than that, because gloss to me would be a little bit of a looser formula. It would also be not quite as pigmented. Anyway, there's just something very unique and special about the Rouge Coco Flash formula. Once you apply it, it starts to like literally melt into your lips. Like the product actually starts to feel thinner and thinner, but it's not like it's fading. It's just sort of like becoming one with your lips. I was just about to say that, but that sounds crazy, but that's what it feels like it's doing. And it's so moisturizing, it's so comfortable, and this shade Boy is like one of my perfect neutrals. I just love it. It's a great everyday shade. They have a bunch of really beautiful nude shades. Chicness is one. Live or Live, I'm not as extra, Live, is another. And then they keep coming out with really beautiful like limited edition shades. Such a tease. But the line is great. The shade range is great. The formula is wonderful. It's so good. I feel like I can just depend on this. It's very dependable. And as for lip gloss, this was almost toppled, you guys, but I said no, we're going with the Rouge Coco Gloss in 804 Rose Naif. I've talked about this a lot. I talked about this in my top 10 Chanel Beauty. Oh, that's when I talked about this as well. There's just something really magical about this formula and this shade. And when I say shade, I don't even know what I mean, because it is nearly clear. But do you see that beautiful sheen? It's shiny, but not too shiny. It's like shiny, but not glassy. So there's not a ton of reflect. Anyway, there's something about that shine and this very subtle milky pink that makes your lips look so plump. So plump. And I've mentioned that whenever I wear this, in New York, it hasn't happened here in Vegas, but when I wear this lip gloss when I'm in New York City, people stop and ask me if I just got my lips done. Or what have I done to my lips? What are you wearing? Your lips look so great. These are the questions I get when I wear this lip gloss. And a few of you have commented the same thing. The same thing has happened to you. So if you wear a nice contouring lip pencil, maybe something like that Dior, maybe something like this Endless Cacao from Makeup Forever, and you just kind of softly blend it in and then you put this on top. Ooh, it is lip changing. It is so good. I cannot explain to you what it is in this shade or finish or formula that does it, but your lips will look plumper and juicier and more youthful than ever before. All right, guys, I'm looking around my vanity to make sure I talked about everything. Oh, I didn't talk about everything. Darn it. You guys, I missed cream shadows. So I talked about the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude Eyeshadow Palette. I talked about my singles pick. These Westman Atelier iPods are my favorite. They're not even really a cream. They're like a putty or pooty. They're like a pooty texture. They are springy. So I wouldn't call them a cream. Let's just say these are my favorite non-powder shadows. So I am holding 2 stacks. One is the Le Jour and one is Toujours. Le Jour, I think, came out when she first came out with these. And this is one of the few products, I have to show you, that I've hit pan on. That's how much I love it. So it's the shade Tabak. And you see, I actually hit pan. So I'm continuing to use these iPods. The little stacks are so great. This is Neige that comes in there. It's a beautiful, like crystally white, beautiful highlighty shade. And then Chocolat is a beautiful metallic brown, deep brown. So this is probably my most used, most loved stack, Le Jour. But I wanted to mention Toujours. This is the newest one, and this is all matte, but the same formula. So we've got Vanille is one, Cafe Creme, and then Beige is the mid-tone. So here are the 2 stacks swatched side by side. This is Toujours, the matte stack, and then this is Le Jour, which is the more metallic. Isn't that beautiful? I love this formula. It is very subtle. It's very, very subtle, and I really like that. You get a very, very natural look, really beautiful, very youthful look, and I like using her brush with it. So the baby blender brush, sorry, I'm looking around for it, but I think it's dirty. What's new? And I have a bunch of them. Oh, actually, I have this petite brush set that I haven't even used, but these are like the travel size of her brushes. So this is the baby blender brush. I probably have 3 of these in my collection. It's so good. So it's rounded. And I think she actually created this brush to use as like a little bit of a highlight brush, but I love using it as eyeshadow. And I love going into the Tabak shade, this glowy, like peachy brown taupey shade. I love going into that and just using it as a one and done. And then this is the eyeshadow 2 brush. And so it's very similar to the Baby Blender, but it has like a fluffier tip. And I was playing around with this, and this was really, really great with the matte one, with the Toujours stack. And I could really kind of blend out each shade, and they, you know, like blended into one another really, really nicely. I got a nice kind of gradient. Really, really beautiful putty shades. And I really like that the pigmentation is soft, but very buildable and just really easy to use. So those are my favorite non-powder eyeshadows. Okay, guys, that is it for my all-time absolute favorite luxury makeup. That would be my Desert Island makeup kit. Those are the products I would grab first if there was a natural disaster. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know what some of your favorites are down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you've been enjoying Mishmas. I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you in tomorrow's Mishmas video. Bye.